Hey, what do you know? This is the Melbourne Live Show, and how's everyone doing? I certainly hope that you're doing a okay here. And today, I want to talk to you about why setting goals alone it's not enough. But before we get into that, there's just a few things that I'd like to share with you a little bit more. The website melvin.me, what I've done with the website itself is essentially we have refocused the entire site on just three things. So essentially, the whole idea of that is still about me exploring and looking at ideas and testing them for building a one person, 1 million or digital business. Still, that is the premise itself. No change. However, when it comes to the framework itself, I have decided to make some tweaks to that so that it has a bit more clarity itself. So in order to build this one person, 1 million or digital business, the main idea behind that is the following. Now, we all have a talent, we all have an expertise, the knowledge, the skill sets, the experience, for example, right? And what we want to do is we want to be able to monetize that. And the way to monetize that up until now, we used to think that the way to monetize that essentially is to sell our time for money. So whether you are a employee, a freelancer, an independent consultant, or self-employed, essentially you have to show up because if you do not show up, you do not get paid. Essentially, that is the whole premise of things. And so, up until then, that was pretty much the model for most people. Now, of course, in today's context itself, with the availability of technology and also the opportunities that has presented itself out there, we are now able to leverage technology as well as to be able to take advantage of the democratization of distribution, creation of you know digital information. We're able to take advantage of that and start building a few things. So number one area is that you have to start building an asset. So if you think about a business, right? You think about any business itself, what is the number one asset of Coca Cola? Well, the number one asset of Coca Cola, two things. One is, of course, the secret formula, and number two is the brand. What is the main thing behind Nike, for example? I would argue that it is the brand because a shirt like this probably costs you like $1 to manufacture it at scale. But in order for you to sell it without any brand itself, you probably can only sell it for like $2.99. But once you slap the Nike logo on this piece of cloth can then be sold for 15, 20, even 30 times the cost, the price of the cost itself. So for Nike, essentially, it's the brand. It's the brand itself. I would even argue it may not even be the quality of the material, but it's simply the brand. The brand in and of itself, it's able to deliver that, right? And so any business, right? Any business has to have an asset. Of course, the more assets you have, the better it is. And so if you think about it in this manner, in the past, in order for anyone to create their own asset, they will need a lot, they would need a lot to invest in a studio or to get someone to do that kind of production for them. And I would even argue that at that point, at that skill itself, it's going to be largely difficult. So right now the opportunity has presented itself, and what I just want to say is that you should be looking at how you could take advantage of that opportunity itself. All right. So check out the website melvin.me because that's where I write every day, focusing on three aspects. One is on the asset creation, the other part is on automation, and the third part is on acceleration. Right. And today I would want to go into the topic of setting goals. I mean, 2021 is just around the corner, right? My wife was just telling me that, hey, we should bring out the Christmas trees soon. And so, with 2020 coming to an end, I think many of us in this stage, at this time itself, many of us are looking at, what kind of goals can we set for 2021? And I would say that, yes, setting goals are really, really important. Setting goals are probably one of the most important things that I would tell you to do. But more so than that, there is one thing that is still needed on top of setting goals. Now, what is that one thing? And today's video, it's what I want to focus on this one thing itself. But before I tell you what this one thing is, I like to take you a little bit back in history, all right, back in time. Take you back all the way to 1945. So 1945 is the end of the World War II. And what happened was after the Japanese surrendered, um, Japan actually went into this demilitarization, um, you know, journey itself. And the whole process was actually what I would say was actually headed by General MacArthur. And this whole occupation by the Allied forces lasted from 1945 all the way to 1952. Now, what happened was that in 1950, there was this American gentleman. His name is called Edward Edwards Deming, right? William Edwards Deming. And William Edwards Deming himself he's actually like a polymath, right? He's like a consultant, a professor, a statistician, you know, many things roll into one. And so he came to Japan and he taught them the idea, the concept of service quality. In fact, one of the biggest contribution that Deming has contributed to the Japanese economy, which is eventually led to that Japan's economic miracle for more than 3 decades, I believe. Right, that one thing that he actually brought to Japan was this idea of the PDCA cycle. So, for those of you who are not familiar with the PDCA cycle, essentially it's P, it's plan, D is do, C is check, and A is act or adjust. Right. So, the PDCA cycle essentially was this whole thinking framework that gets you to think about, how you can look at improvement. So as you go through this cycle itself, you would then be looking at what kind of improvement can I introduce into the process itself, right? So this has led to the quality movement in Japan. And in fact, this quality movement, as it's called in Japan, it's called Kaizen, has actually contributed to the success of many Japanese companies. For example, like Toyota, right? You heard about the Toyota way. In fact, the Toyota way was one of the instrumental factor that made an impact on the Singapore economy. In the early 80s, what happened was that Singapore was going through this whole economic journey where we were transiting from a labor intensive to a capital intensive economy. And so at a point in time, we wanted to find out what is it that we could do to help the economy make that transition and make people to enable our people to be more productive when it comes to handling the machines, because we're moving into a capital intensive economy itself, right? And so that led to this huge movement called the productivity movement that started in the 80s. And so in the 80s, we started this whole idea of this productivity movement about good, better, best. And that essentially led to the our version of the economic miracle, whereby Singapore, along with three other Asian economies, became recognized as the Asian Four Little Dragons. And we were named the Four Little Dragons because we were predominantly Chinese economy, and we were seeing exceptional growth of 7% or more. And we were seeing that kind of growth on a consistent basis, in fact, for many years. And so when you kind of look at this whole story itself, the key word here is this thing called consistency, right? Because you learn in statistics, right? When you have one data point and your data point achieve that goal, right? It's just a unit of observation. It's just one point itself. So with that one point, there is no way for you to make any kind of comparison. And there isn't a way for you to say that, well, it is something that you are able to sustain or not. And so beyond that one point, that one unit of observation, you go into 2 points data, right? 2 point data. And with 2 point data, all you can do is to say that, well, compared to previous data, you are better off or you are worse off. So at best, you can only do a comparison. Now, what happens is when you have three data points and more, and assuming that you are able to demonstrate that you are able to meet the target or achieve your goal year after year after year, what that signifies is that you now have what we call a trend. And trend, of course, can be seen in three ways, right? You can talk about an upward trend. You can also talk about a downward trend. And in addition to that, you can also talk about a what we call a yo-yo trend. I mean, some years is up, some years down. There isn't a consistent trend here. So the point here is that what we want to see is we want to see consistency. Now, how do we get that consistency in terms of result? Well, in consultant parlance, what we talked about is that we say that if the organization or the person is able to deliver the kind of results consistently, what we say is that there must be a structured approach to lead to this outcome itself. And so this is where things get a little bit more interesting, right? Because we say that what goes into this structured approach. And essentially, when you look at this structured approach, and once again in consultant parlance, we call that a system, right? This system is something that leads you to achieve this result on a consistent basis. So it's not one time, it's not coincidence, it's not luck, it is consistency and it's predictable. So if you want to be able to achieve your goal, and not just achieve your goal itself, if you want to achieve your goal on a consistent basis, what you need to have would be a set of system. Now, so what exactly is a system, right? Now, there are a few ways of looking at it. The academic definition of what a system is a collective group of processes that makes up a system. So you can look at it like, for example, in your body, you have the respiratory system, you have the digestive system, but each of this system has got different parts, right? In the world that we live, you have a transportation system. And in the transportation system, you might have the bus, the rail, the other form of transportation, for example. So all this makes up the system. Now, as we break down into the smaller parts and to bring it down to the level of language that we are familiar with, we say system itself, essentially at the personal level, at your level, what we're talking about is a set of routine, right? A set of routine, something that you do on a consistent basis. So a routine could be as simple as, well, every day you wake up and you would drink a glass of water, you would brush your teeth, I hope, right? And you would then do, your workout or you would do something, right? What is your routine? And why is that routine really, really important? And I'll share with you why. One of the reasons I'm able to consistently make a total of 176 videos to date to live stream to bring you this live show on a consistent basis. It's not because I am disciplined, far from that. It's not that I'm so smart. It is not that I have so much to say. It is not that I am trying too hard. But the reason why this it's possible and I have yet to miss a single day. The reason why this is possible is because of one thing. And that one thing is because I have made it into a routine, a ritual, if you like. So, in order to create this live show, there are a series of steps that must happen. For example, I need to know what I'm going to say. I need to know what I'm going to talk about. I need to have a purpose for that. I need to know what is that problem that I'm solving with each and every episode. What doesn't mean that I succeed on each and every episode itself. Sometimes I would say, some episodes are not as good. Some episodes are much better. But the point is this: when you have developed a routine, it becomes something that you do not even think about it. You do not even fight with your emotions. You do not even fight with yourself to say that, oh, I really don't want to do this, or I know I have to do this, or I know I need to do this, but I really do not feel like doing it. And many a times we fall into that trap. And quite often, for most of us, the trap, the emotion would overwhelm us. And by overwhelming, it means that we would actually succumb to that emotion, or we succumb to that feeling itself. Oh, it doesn't matter, just missing a day. I can always make it up, right? And once that starts to happen, what you see is that there isn't a consistency. And without consistency, you are not going to be able to achieve your goal. And even if you do, it may be one off, it may be a coincidence, it may be by chance. But to say that you have a structured approach, to say that you are able to consistently work towards your goal, may be something a little hard to sell. So, coming back to this episode itself, is there something else that needs to be done other than just setting goals? And if you have been paying attention, you would know that the answer to that question is essentially you need to have a system, or you need to have a workflow, or you need to have some kind of a routine. So, whether it's a routine, a workflow, or a system, you need to have something that removes the emotional, the rationalization part that's going to get in your way. You want to remove that. And essentially, you want to know that every day, this is the one thing that I must do. And once you're able to establish that, you would then be able to, on a daily basis, or on a regular basis, to chip at your goal. And with that consistency itself, it is almost sure, or at least you know, that you are going to see that possibility of, or that increased likelihood that you are going to achieve your goals. So, my friends, setting goals isn't enough. You need a system, you need a workflow, you need a routine. Now, the question I want to leave you with is the following: is there something better than a system? Well, what do you think? Right? Leave your comments, leave your answers in the comments below. And if you got a question, I'll be more than glad to answer your question. And of course, once again, if you haven't already signed up for um, the newsletter, please head on down to melvin.me and sign up for the newsletter, where every week what I do is I curate and I will share with you the ideas and the concepts that I have explored and I've tested, and I share that with you. So it's a short email that you will get from me, and in it I will share with you three things that will be able to help you think about how you could enhance either your mental model, your business model, or your revenue model to be able to help you achieve this 1 person, 1 million or digital business, right? And so make sure you subscribe to that newsletter. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel itself. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.